just really quick. Whoops.
All right, it's recording.
Perfect. Just to clarify with Zoom, this is our first time using the Zoom platform to give a presentation to all of the benefit administrators. So use the Q&A feature. I know we said questions, but it's actually the Q&A feature to ask any of your questions. But with that being said, thank you, Robert. Today we're going to be covering a lot of information that has to do with preparing for the start of the new school year. My name is Sarah Story, and I am a benefit marketing rep with the Healthcare Authority. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, we're going to be covering a lot of the information today. We're going to be covering a lot of various types of employees. So first we'll start off with returning employees. We'll get into newly eligible employees, transferring employees, and then we'll cover employees not returning. And then I want to go over an appeal reminder. So we'll cover that really quick. And then there were some SEBB account changes and updates that we'll cover. And then we'll conclude the presentation by going over some reminders, tips, and resources. All right, so let's first talk about returning eligible school employees. Now, when I say returning, I mean returning for the next school year. So for returning eligible employees, benefits continue uninterrupted from one school year to the next if that employee is enrolled in SEBB benefits at the end of the school year. Now, remember, a school year is from September 1st to August 31st in the eyes of SEBB. If that employee is determined to be eligible for the next school year and is returning to the same SEBB org, all right? So this means that there is no change to the eligibility status since the employee is remaining eligible. So no worksheet is required as notification. Now, let's say that you had an employee who was eligible one school year and is no longer going to be eligible in the next school year. Well, they would need to be given a worksheet in this scenario as notification to notify them of the change in their eligibility going from eligible to no longer being eligible. And it would be the same way vice versa. If they are not eligible and then they are turning into being eligible going into the next school year, they have to be given a notification worksheet. All right, so benefit election changes will remain in effect going into the new school year. So no new plan selections and no changes to the medical FSA or DCAP contributions will be happening. Employees will need to wait until the next annual open enrollment or have a special open enrollment event to make these changes if they wish to. So just a quick reminder, the annual open enrollment this year is going to be from October 25th to November 22nd. And then, of course, all of the changes that happen during the next open enrollment will be in effect January 1st of 2022. Then there are changes that employees can make all year round, like enroll in or change their supplemental long-term disability or LTD, life, and AD&D elections. Now, speaking of the annual open enrollment and special the supplemental long-term disability coverage, there are going to be some significant changes to the supplemental LTD benefit effective January 1st of 2022. So it's really important that you tune into our pre-open enrollment webinar that's scheduled for October to learn more about this upcoming change to the supplemental LTD. All right, so focusing on returning employees, let's talk about a few scenarios you may run into preparing for this next school year and what worksheet you would use. So in this scenario, we have Jeff. Jeff was a new teacher for Shelton School District in the 2021 school year and was benefit eligible in his teaching position. Now, Jeff is returning to Shelton School District for the 21-22 school year as a teacher and is not anticipated to work 630 hours. Now, the employer contribution towards SEBB benefits for Jeff will end August 31st, the end of the school year. So you would want to terminate Jeff's coverage in SEBB account. And then you would also want to complete the D3 worksheet to provide to Jeff as notification that he is no longer eligible for benefits. Now, remember, like I said, whenever an employee is hired or has a change in eligibility, they should be given the appropriate worksheet. And in this scenario, Jeff should be given the D3 worksheet as notification. Then the SEBB program will automatically mail a SEBB continuation coverage election notice to the address on file for Jeff around 14 days after his coverage term date. So when I say coverage term date, I mean the date after the date passes in SEBB My Account. So in this case, it would be August 31st. Now, one thing that I do want to point out, if Jeff was not a new employee and happens to qualify for that 2-year look back period, but for some reason is not anticipated to work at least 630 hours in the next school year, a D3 worksheet will still need to be completed, and you will need to provide specific reasons as to why Jeff is not anticipated to work 630 hours in the next school year. So here is a screenshot of what that section looks like on the D3 worksheet. All right, so in this next scenario, we have Tanya. Tanya worked for Tumwater School District in the 2021 school year as a paraeducator and was not benefit eligible. Now Tanya is returning to Shelton School District for the 21-22 school year and is anticipated to work at least 630 hours in her same position as a paraeducator. So in this scenario, Tanya would need to be added as a newly eligible employee in SEBB My Account. And you would want to complete and provide the D4 worksheet to Tanya as notification of now being benefit eligible. Now notice that in this scenario, Tanya is not being provided an A1 worksheet. And the reason for that is because Tanya is an existing employee and all of the A series worksheets are for newly hired employees. So I do want to point that out, that in this scenario, since Tanya was an existing employee, she should be given the D4 worksheet, not an A1. All right, now let's take a look at a few different scenarios when you would use the D5 worksheet. So we're going to go over 3 different scenarios using the D5. So let's say an employee ends employment. Now, when I say ends employment, the employment relationship is being terminated completely. Okay, they're not going on leave and then coming back. The employment relationship is completely being terminated. So let's say that we have an employee and their employment ends the month of August, which means that they are losing eligibility August 31st. Then that employee is rehired in September of the new school year. So in this case, you would use the D5 worksheet. And if determined to be eligible, benefits are going to be reinstated with no new elections for this employee. And the reason for that is because the employee had less than a month's break in coverage. They're going from August to September. In our next scenario, let's say an employee ends their employment in the month of November, which means that they're losing eligibility November 30th. And that same employee is rehired in December of the same school year and is determined to be eligible. So in this case, you would still use the D5 worksheet, and the employee will be reinstated in coverage due to having less than a month's break in coverage again. So even though they're within the same school year, there was still that less than a month's break in coverage. So they will be reinstated in their benefits and will not receive new elections. Now, our next scenario, let's say an employee ends employment in the month of November, which means that they are losing eligibility November 30th. But this employee is hired in April of the same school year and is determined to be eligible. Okay, so a little bit longer break in coverage. So in this scenario, you would still use the D5 worksheet, but this employee will receive new elections due to having more than a month's break in coverage. And then one last scenario that you might be running across. Let's say you have an employee who ends their employment in the month of May, which means that they're losing their eligibility May 31st. And then that same employee is being rehired in September of the new school year. Okay, so you might be running into this where you had an employee who left employment sometime last school year and now they're being rehired for this coming school year. Now, in this scenario, you need to complete the appropriate A series worksheet due to being more than a month's break in coverage, and that employee is returning in a whole new school year. So remember, an A series worksheet is for new hires. So this employee would be treated as a new hire. Okay, so next we're going to talk about newly eligible employees. And first I want to go over the eligibility notification requirements for these newly eligible employees. So there was a Gov delivery that was sent on June 29th of this year that covered determining eligibility and effective dates. And it does provide some examples. So you can always go back and check out this Gov delivery. Again, it was sent out on June 29th. So when it comes to determining eligibility, the employee is anticipated to work at least 630 hours in this school year. Now, it's important that you know when anticipating work hours, you will want to include all hours worked as an employee with your SEBB org. You'll also want to include all hours worked from multiple positions within the same SEBB org, or that's also called stacking hours. And you also want to include all hours compensated by the SEBB org while that employee is on leave or a paid holiday. Now, for all new hires, you'll want to complete and provide the applicable A series worksheet as notification whether the employee is eligible or not. So even if a new hire is not eligible, you still need to provide them an A series worksheet, letting them know that they are not eligible for benefits. So like I said, that's key. Even if an employee is not anticipated to work 630 hours in the school year, they will need to be given an A series worksheet letting them know that they are not eligible for benefits. So regardless, a new hire needs to be given a worksheet. All right, so newly hired eligible employees have 31 days from their date of eligibility to complete their enrollment. Now, the good news is when you fill out and complete an A series worksheet for these newly eligible employees, the worksheet will have their 31-day deadline calculated and listed so the employee knows when they need to complete their enrollment by. Now, when we say complete enrollment, we mean logging into SEBB My account and completing their coverage elections in the newly eligible tab. Now, one thing that I do want to point out, newly eligible employees cannot make their enrollment elections in SEBB My account until on or after their eligibility date. Okay, so if you have employees trying to log in, SEBB My account will not allow them to get in there until their eligibility date. So let's say we have an employee and they have a date of eligibility of September 9th. Well, the employee should be added by their benefit administrator as a new subscriber prior to their eligibility date of September 9th. And then beginning September 9th, the employee can sign into SEBB My account and begin their enrollment process in the newly eligible tab. And in this case, the employee has until October 10th to complete their enrollment elections. Okay, that's their 31-day initial enrollment window. Now, let's say this employee does not take action and make their coverage elections within 31 days. So in that case, they will default into the default coverages. So it's really important that employees take action when they are newly eligible and get in and make their coverage elections. So it's really important that notification of eligibility is being provided to your employees within a reasonable time frame. And the reason I say this is because all newly eligible employees must have no less than 10 calendar days after the date of receiving their notification of being eligible to elect coverage. So let's take a look at an example. So let's say you have a newly eligible employee and their date of eligibility is September 3rd. And they're given the appropriate worksheet, letting them know that they are eligible. Now, if the employee is notified no later than September 24th the employee is still within their initial 31-day enrollment window and will have until October 4th to make elections. See how they have 10 days at least, to no less than 10 days to make their elections. Now, let's say this employee was not notified until September 30th of being eligible. Well, based off of the rules stated above, the employee must have no less than 10 calendar days after receiving notice to elect coverage. So the employee now has until October 10th to make elections. So this goes beyond that initial 31-day enrollment window. So if the employee does not make their elections within the 31-day enrollment window, the BA will have to have them fill out a paper enrollment form, return that paper enrollment form to you, their BA, and you will have to enter that employee's elections into SEBB account for them. So it does create a little bit more work for you. And the reason why this has to happen is because SEBB account does not recognize that 10-day rule and is not going to allow the employee to make elections on their own after the initial 31-day enrollment window. So please be sure you're notifying your employees of their eligibility timely. Preferably, this should be on the day that they become eligible, because in the long run, it's going to probably create less work for you. All right, so one more time, I just want to point this out and make it clear that if you don't timely enter your newly eligible employees in SEBB account and timely provide notification, AKA that's a worksheet, of eligibility to these employees, then you will need to provide the employee a paper enrollment form, and you will be required to manually enter the employee's benefit elections in SEBB account. Another thing that I want to point out, if you enter an incorrect date of eligibility for your employee, please do not change that eligibility date on your own, even if SEBB account allows you to. We ask that you please send in a fuse letting us know, and we can manually correct it to ensure that your employee's profile is correct and all of the dates line up like they should be on the back end. All right, so now with these newly eligible employees, let's talk about the SEBB account process and what that looks like. So when it comes to adding newly eligible employees in SEBB account, you have two options. You can upload them using an eligibility file, or you can enter each employee manually. Now you'll only want to add newly eligible employees into SEBB account as a new subscriber and before their date of eligibility. So let's talk about the eligibility file upload. So this is a way to bulk upload your newly eligible employees. Now, if you choose to use this method to enter in your newly eligible employees, there are certain file specifications that you must follow in order to get this file updated or uploaded correctly. So the format can be found in the SEBB account manual, and that is located on the BA website under manuals. You would want to click the eligibility file button from your SEBB account admin dashboard to upload these files. And I have a screenshot of what that button looks like from your admin dashboard. It's located on the bottom of the screen here. Now, if you are uploading this and if an error occurs, SEBB account will display these errors with an explanation on why this record resulted in an error. Another thing that I want to point out is that it's really important that you do not enter employees who are already entered in the SEBB account. And the reason for that is because SEBB account does not have a way to compare those who are already in SEBB account and those who are being uploaded via the eligibility file. So you run that risk of entering someone in there twice. All right, so now if you choose to enter in your newly eligible employees manually into SEBB account, you'll want to do so before their date of eligibility. So for example, if an employee's date of eligibility is September 15th, and they're provided the appropriate worksheet as notification, you would want to enter this employee in SEBB account before September 15th. Now, I do want to point out that employees can set up their SEBB My Account login once they are entered as a new subscriber by you, but they cannot log into SEBB My Account to make their elections until their date of eligibility. So when I say set up their login, that's setting up their SAW account, their username, password, and their security questions. But SEBB My Account's not going to allow them to get in there and get into their newly eligible tab to make their elections, again, until on or after their date of eligibility. All right, so when you are adding a newly eligible employee in SEBB My Account manually, you would click the Add New Subscriber button. It will then take you to the screen you see below for you to enter the employee's social security number and their date of eligibility. Now, I do want to point out here that the employee's date of eligibility is the date that they became eligible for benefits. This is not their effective date of coverage. SEBB My Account will automatically calculate the employee's effective date of coverage based off of their eligibility date. So you will never enter in the employee's effective date of coverage into SEBB My Account. All right, so date of eligibility is the date that this employee is determined to be eligible for benefits. So once you enter their social security number and date of eligibility and click next, it will take you to this screen to have you enter in the appropriate employee information. And then you would just want to click submit changes you see at the bottom left-hand side to save this employee's profile. Now, let's say you are adding a newly eligible employee in SEBB My Account, but this newly eligible employee is a dependent on another SEBB employee's coverage. So if you run into a situation like this, you would want to enter this newly eligible employee into SEBB My Account as a new subscriber like you normally would. And then you will receive this notice after entering in their social security number and their date of eligibility. The notice is letting you know that this employee has existing SEBB coverage as a dependent, and that SEBB My Account will term the dependent's dental and vision coverage once their own effective date of coverage is reached. And I also want to note that a special open enrollment or SOE is not required to remove the dependent from the other person's SEBB coverage. All right, so the situation that we just covered is a dual enrollment or dual membership situation. Now, I do want to note that there are going to be new rules associated with dual enrollment and dual membership between SEBB and PEB. So this coming fall for open enrollment, there's some changes that are happening. So be sure to plan to attend our pre-open enrollment training that's scheduled again in October to learn more. It's a lot of different changes coming up for open enrollment. So mark it on your calendar to keep a lookout to register for our pre-OE training. It's right now, I think it's scheduled for October 1st is the tentative date that we have on our calendars. All right, so let's talk about transferring employees. So when it comes to transferring employees, the receiving district will want to determine the employee's eligibility. So if this employee is determined to be eligible, you should review the A5 transfer worksheet for guidance. Now, if this employee is not determined to be eligible or determined not eligible, you'll want to review and provide the appropriate A-series worksheet, letting this employee know. Now, benefits are going to continue uninterrupted if this employee is moving from one SEBB org to another within the same or following month, and the employee is anticipated to be eligible for SEBB benefits at the new SEBB org. All right, so in this case, the transferring employee will not make new elections unless their health plan is unavailable.
Hey, Sarah, so what does a new employee do if their plans aren't available in that new SEBB organization they're moving to?
That is a great question. So the employee needs to take it upon themselves to create a special open enrollment in their SEBB My Account profile or SOE, and they have 60 days to do so to allow them to elect another health plan that is available to wherever they move to.
And then after that 60 days, what happens?
So if the employee does not take action within 60 days, unfortunately, they miss out on that special open enrollment event. So either they're going to need to wait until the annual open enrollment to change their coverage elections, or they would need to incur another SOE event. So it wouldn't be able to be the one that they just missed, but they could, if by chance, have another special open enrollment event that allows them to change their health plan coverage, then they can do that.
Okay.
But long story short, in other words, it's really important that the employee takes action within that 60 days. Oh, there's that, unless the health plan is unavailable. All right, so when you are adding a newly eligible employee who has been transferred or terminated by their previous SEBB org and SEBB My account, you would simply want to still add a new subscriber, and you would want to enter in that new subscriber's social security number and their date of eligibility in SEBB My account. Once you click next, there's going to be a message that shows that this employee is already in SEBB My account. So you can see here, it says transfer record found. It has their last name, first name, and their social security number. You would want to verify that this is the correct employee that you are trying to claim. And you would click that green claim button to transfer this employee's account to your SEBB org. Once you click claim, it then takes you to have you answer some of the important questions and dates for this new employee of your SEBB org. So it's going to have you select an eligibility reason, an eligibility type, the employee's hire date, and then it's going to ask you whether or not this employee is represented by a union or not. So let's say you are adding a newly eligible employee with your district who has not been transferred or terminated in SEBB My account by the previous school district. So if that happens, you still would want to add the new subscriber, enter in the employee's social security number and date of eligibility, and then you're going to receive this message. It says record found that cannot be automatically transferred. And you can see it has the employee's information, and then it has agency, and it has the school district that that employee is currently with or was with. In that case, you need to contact that SEBB org or that school district and let them know that they need to enter in a transfer code for this employee and transfer them out of their district so you can claim that employee's account. So you would want to go to the reports tile button from your SEBB My account admin dashboard. And then in the dropdown, you would want to select the report benefit admin contact list. And then once you click run report for that, it pulls up every school district that is with SEBB. They're all in alphabetical order. And then it has every benefit administrator who is listed for this school district. It has their first name, last name, and their email address. So you can reach out to one or multiple BAs with that district to let them know what they need to do so you're able to claim that new employee. All right, so our last bunch of employees that you might be dealing with are those employees who are not returning. So you would want to terminate coverage no earlier than the month before for those employees who are leaving your SEBB org, or for those employees who are not eligible for the next school year with your SEBB org. All right, so here's an example for you. You have an employee whose last day is August 10th. You can enter their term date no earlier than July 1st in SEBB My account. Now, you'll want to be sure to terminate coverage for employees losing eligibility before August 12th to have them removed from your September billing file. If you're entering in their termination date after August 12th, they're still going to show up on your September billing file. So really August 12th is that cutoff. And I just want to point out that coverage is not going to end automatically. SEBB My account does not know that this employee's coverage should be ending. It's up to the benefit administrators to get in there and terminate the employee's coverage. And then again, since these employees are having a change in eligibility, you'll want to be sure to provide the appropriate C-Series worksheet to these employees as notification of their coverage terminating. Okay, so there is an appeal reminder that I want to go over with you really quick. So there was a Gov delivery sent out on February 23rd of this year with important appeal reminder information. Now, the Gov delivery was letting benefit administrators know that an employee should file an appeal directly to the SEBB program if the employee would like to file an appeal regarding a letter they received directly from the SEBB program with appeal rights attached. So some examples include an employee receiving a letter informing them maybe that they will be paying the spousal surcharge due to failing to reattest during open enrollment. Or another example is a confirmation letter that this employee received after making their coverage elections. Maybe they don't agree with that and they want to file an appeal. In this situation, they would need to appeal directly to the SEBB program. So first, I want to point out that the SEBB appeals unit or the SEBB program must receive a notice of appeal from the employee no later than 30 days after the date of the SEBB program's written action or decision. So this is a very strict 30-day deadline. All right, now these letters contain specific appeal instructions that the employee should follow if they wish to appeal. Now, I want to point out that they should not be using the SEBB employee request for review notice of appeal form, the normal appeal form they would use if they're appealing to their SEBB org. They will be required to write a letter to the SEBB appeals unit stating that they disagree with the decision and would like to file an appeal. And this is stated in those specific appeal instructions that are attached with the letters that they receive. So the reason why I am pointing this out is because many employees were missing that 30-day deadline, and missing that 30-day deadline results in the prior SEBB program decision becoming the healthcare authority's final order without further action. So like I said, that 30-day deadline is a very strict deadline. So let's go ahead and take a look at a scenario. So let's say we have an employee and that employee receives a letter from the SEBB program indicating that they will be required to pay the spousal surcharge due to failing to reattest during open enrollment. Now, this letter contains specific instructions on how the employee can appeal directly to the SEBB program. So this employee needs to follow the appeal instructions on the letter and respond within 30 days. The BA should not reply on behalf of that employee. This falls on the employee working directly with the SEBB program to get that appeal taken care of. All right, so let's talk about some changes that happened in SEBB My Account and some updates. Some of them you might have already noticed, but let's go ahead and cover them. So if a eligible employee is adding or re-adding a dependent, and that dependent has a previous relationship end date under this employee's SEBB profile, when that employee is entering in that dependent social security number, there will be a little notice that says this social security number is already associated with spouse enrollment, and then they can reactivate that employee. So that way they don't have to enter in all of that dependence information. And then another SEBB My Account change that you might have already noticed this one. It's on your admin dashboard, and it is the Data Depot button. So this was previously named the Smart Health button or Smart Health tile. Now HCA is going to use this Data Depot tile to upload ad hoc reports such as the W-2 information at the end of the year, as well as provide an updated list of subscribers who need to reattest for their spousal attestation surcharge during open enrollment. So more to come on that. I'm sure Gov Delivery will be going out if anything is uploaded on there for benefit administrators. Okay, so let's get into some reminders, tips, and resources. So there were some updates to WAC clarifying when employees can lose eligibility. So in correlation with that, the B3 worksheet is being updated, and this update will take effect September 1st. And the update just reflects 2 additional scenarios as to when an employee can lose eligibility. And then I also want to point out that our other worksheet updates will be going into effect January 1st of 2022. So just be on the lookout for that. All right, so let's talk about updating the first day of school. So there was a reminder Gov delivery that went out, and that went out on June 28th. And it was just reminding you that that first day of school needs to be updated. Now, the first day of school should have already been updated. We were asking BAs to update that by August 1st. If you have not already done so, please do this as soon as possible. You log into SEBB account, you go into your organization profile. Here, I'll show you a screenshot of what that looks like here in a minute. But please do this as soon as possible if you have not already updated that first day of school for your district. Now, if you have been entering in newly eligible employees with an effective date between September 1st and the first day of school for your district, prior to the first day of school being updated in SEBB account, please send us a fuse with those employees' information. We want that employee's information because we want to ensure that their dates are correctly lining up in the system. So please be mindful of that and send us in a fuse if you have employees that were already entered into SEBB account as newly eligible and you have not updated your first day of school yet. Another reminder is to be sure to terminate your employees who are losing eligibility. This does not automatically happen. You have to tell SEBB account to terminate those employees. And do this before August 12th for those employees to be removed from the September billing file. And then one last reminder, enter those newly eligible employees in SEBB account prior to their eligibility date. Okay, so updating the new first day of school for your district. Like I said, this should be completed every year by August 1st. You can see in the screenshot here that in the organization profile, that first day of school is located kind of in the middle on the right-hand side. Now, for those districts who have multiple first days of school, you're going to want to enter the latest date as your first day of school. If you are an ESD, you would want to enter the first working day in September as your first day of school. And I do want to point out that this is required every year. So maybe putting it on your calendar for prior to August 1st to be sure to get in there and update that first day of school. And while you're in there, be sure that your SEBB org contacts are up to date. This is where we go to see who we need to contact who we would contact if we have questions regarding someone's benefits, something on payroll, maybe billing, or if we need to get in touch with your superintendent. So please be sure that those contacts are up to date. If you have not added any contacts for your SEBB organization, go ahead and get those added in there for us so that we know who to contact to ensure we're contacting the right person with your district for whatever question we have. Okay, so I want to touch base a little bit and hopefully clear up some confusion with the date of eligibility. So when you're adding a new employee and you click that add new subscriber button, you've seen this screen before, you would enter the social security number and then that employee's date of eligibility. Now, this is the date that the employee established eligibility. So the date they are determined to be eligible, meaning that they're anticipated to work 630 hours or they have worked 630 hours. This is the date that they are determined eligible. The effective date of benefits is calculated by SEBB account based off of the date of eligibility. Okay, so you're never entering in the employee's effective date of coverage in SEBB account. Again, it's calculated automatically based off of the date of eligibility that you input for your employee. So once you input that information and you click next, it then takes you to the employee's employment tab, and you can see that the date of eligibility carries over and it's pre-filled into the next screen. You also are going to be asked to enter in the hire date. So this is the date when the employee was first hired with your school district. So if you take a closer look at the dates that we have listed here, we have a hire date for this employee of 10/7/2014. So this is an existing employee, but they are just now becoming eligible, and they established eligibility on 8/27/2021. You then are going to be asked whether or not this employee is represented by a union. So if you click no, that's great. You scroll down and you click submit changes. Now let's say that this employee is represented by a union. So if you click, or if you select yes in that drop down, there is another field that pops up and it says effective start date. So this is the date when the employee became represented. This date does not affect the benefit effective start date. So I know it's a little bit deceiving and can be confusing, but the effective start date is for when the employees first started being represented by their union. So you can see the date we have in here is 10/7/2014, because this teacher was started being represented by a union on their hire date with the school district in 2014. Again, the date of eligibility is the date the employee established eligibility. The effective date of benefits is calculated in SEBB My Account based off of the date of eligibility. So I hope that cleared up a little bit of confusion and helped you better understand those different fields that we ask for in the employment tab.
Hey, Sarah, I know we talked about the first updating the first day of school. Just keep in mind that only admins can update that first day of school under the organizational profile. You must have admin rights to be able to do that.
Yes, great comment. Speaking of admins, that's actually our next slide here. So you want to, going into the new school district or new school year, you might be having some new employees coming on board who handle benefits or who need access to SEBB My Account, or maybe someone's leaving and you need to end their access. So if you are needing to add or remove anyone who has admin rights, you want to go ahead and submit an admin appointment removal form via Fuse for us to go ahead and either end that employee's admin access or to add someone with admin access. And then, of course, if you are turning that form into us, just be sure that you have your superintendent sign-in date. We have it highlighted on the bottom of the form there. We are not able to accept the form unless your superintendent signs and dates that. And then just a reminder that anyone who has admin access in SEBB My Account can assign other user roles such as the access management, the edit, finance, and the read-only access with SEBB My Account. You don't have to turn in a form for those different roles. And then I do want to point out the access management. Having the access management role allows you to disassociate an employee's SEBB My Account from their SAW account, allowing them to basically recreate their username, their password, and their security questions. So if you do not have access management, or if you don't have that role checked next to your name, you are not going to be able to see that disassociate subscriber feature or option when you look up your employees.
Hey, Sarah, I do want to point out, you notice the signature of superintendent and the date, it kind of looks like it's in the removal section. Keep in mind, we've been getting a lot of these forms back and people think because it's in the removal section and we want to add an admin that we don't need to sign it. So every form must be signed by your superintendent and dated. So we are trying to get that corrected. So again, if you're adding an admin, you must have the superintendent's signature and date on this form when you submit it.
Yes, good reminder. Okay, so let's talk about some BA resources. So of course we have the SEBB BA website, or we call it BA, but it's a SEBB Benefits Administrator's website. This is a website that is going to be your best friend in your role. It's a lot of great resources. I highly recommend that you get in there and you make yourself familiar with the different features of that account or of that website, because it really, I know it makes my life easier, so I can only imagine how it would make your life easier being a benefit administrator. Of course, we have our outreach and training phone number. It is 1-800-700-1555. We also have Fuse secured messaging. If you have not already registered for Fuse, you can do that on the benefit administrator website. We use that to communicate with our benefit administrators, and you're able to send in socials, all sorts of employee information because it is a secured messaging system. And then be sure to register for Gov Delivery if you have not already done so. Gov Delivery is what we use at the Healthcare Authority to communicate with all of our benefit administrators on important updates, topics, reminders. So be sure to go and register for that. You would go to the benefit administrator website and click the notices and updates, and you're able to input your email to sign up for Gov Delivery. And I want to point out one last reminder to contact us with employees' questions. Employees should not be contacting us directly. So the outreach and training phone number in the Fuse secured messaging system is only for benefit administrators. Employees should not be utilizing this. So as I stated earlier, our next open enrollment is October 25th through November 22nd of this year. And then new elections that, or any changes or new elections that occur during open enrollment will be taking effect January 1st. Now, I do want to point out again that there are significant changes when it comes to supplemental long-term disability, the FSA or flexible spending arrangement, and dual enrollment. And it's going to require both BA and employee attention during open enrollment. So be sure to attend our pre-open enrollment training to learn more about these changes and all of the details. All right, so we have our upcoming webinar schedule. These are tentative dates, but right now, October 1st is our pre-annual open enrollment training. And then December 10th is going to be our post-annual open enrollment training. And you can go to the benefit administrator website to register. It's under training schedule to get registered for those. The registration is not up yet, but we will be getting that posted here potentially within the next few weeks, but just be on the lookout to see when that registration opens. All right, with that being said, I will turn it over to Rob so he can do some Q&A. It looks like we have a few minutes left to be able to do that.
Yeah, so if you could take a look at some of the questions, I've been like, I'm busy answering a lot of questions here. And if you could, Sarah, I think it would be very important because I think there's a lot of BAs that aren't familiar with the BA website. And so I'm getting a lot of questions on where the worksheet's at, where can I find the presentation? And all our presentations are loaded, and Sarah's going to show you on the BA website here where you can find past presentations and the recordings to include the one that we're doing today. Also, where the worksheets are. All the worksheets are on the BA website. So if you're not familiar with that, all the WACS policies and rules are on there. Everything you need in your job to be successful as a benefit administrator.
Yes. So are you able to see the BA website now that I'm sharing? Okay, perfect. So going to the BA website, again, that it's kind of blocking, but it's hca.wa.gov/SEBB, SEBB -benefits-admins. I highly recommend that you look this up and you save it to your favorites because this is going to, like I said, be a great resource for you. So to find the worksheets when you're on the BA homepage, when you first go to that website, when you scroll down a little bit, you can see that it says Employee Eligibility Tools and Worksheets. You simply just click that. And then this is the web page. If you scroll down, it gives you a little bit of guidance, but then it gets into the different worksheets for you. So you have your A series, and it goes in alphabetical order. So you have your A series, your B series, and so on, your C series. And then you can see there's the B1, B2, B3. Each worksheet has a little blurb telling you what this worksheet should be used for, what situation. So that is a great resource. Be sure to be using those worksheets because it is required to be giving those employees notification. Clicking back on this button that says SEBB Benefit Administrators, if you click that, it takes you back to the homepage where you first started. And then if you go under Quick Reference Guides and Training, and you click Training Schedule and Materials, this is where our training schedule is. So you can see that the webinar that we're in right now It'll be being taken down soon, but this is where you would have gone to register. And this is where you'll go to register for other upcoming webinars. And then if you go to the left-hand side, you can follow my cursor here. It says training materials. If you click training materials, this is where all of our past recorded webinars and our past presentations are located. So this is like going to be gold for if you're wanting to learn more about your position, you haven't gotten a chance to attend these webinars. So we have a webinar on the eligibility file, supplemental benefits, eligibility worksheets. So this is a really good one. If you click on that, you can see that there is recorded webinars for the A, B, and C series. Dependent eligibility, open enrollment. Now, miscellaneous topics. This is where most of our webinars are stored. So you can see recorded webinars. These are all recorded webinars in the past that we have done. And then if you click presentations, you can see this is where the PowerPoints are going to be located. So under presentations, the first one listed is preparing for the start of the new school year. And that is the presentation that I just went and presented to you. So there's that. What else did they want to see, Rob?
I did have a question. Can you order the 2022 enrollment handbooks? So those aren't out yet, and we haven't got word when those will be available. Probably sometime in September, just like last year. So be watching out for that.
I think actually it's closer to November, December timeframe.
Oh, is it when the
Yeah.
the enrollment guides?
Yep. So just keep in mind that for new employees coming into this new school year, they're still going to be using the 2021 enrollment guide because the benefits do not change until January. So
Good point.
yeah, so November or December is when the enrollment guide for the next year will be coming out and is available to be ordered for 2022. So be on the lookout for that. But for new employees who are coming on board for your school district in the coming months, especially like for September, you should be giving them the 2021 new employee enrollment guide.
And just keep in mind those 2022 enrollment guides are for new hires that are coming on for the school year of 2022. Again, those benefits don't change until January 1st.
Yes.
So I did get a question under, they wanted to know about the eligibility file. And there, again, under the training materials, you can find the recording. There's certain specifications, and you might want to check with your IT team on how to set up that specification. I know we didn't have a lot of eligibility files currently, but we did have a lot when we first started SEBB program back in 2019, and people were working through it, trying to figure out how to get the specifications and be able to upload those files. So there are instructions if you go to training schedule and materials and click on training materials. Is that under there? I know there's also.
It's in the SEBB My Account manual.
Okay. And there's also some information. There's a recording and the presentation under training materials as well. Yes. So you can find that, how to submit that.
Yes. And the eligibility file, it's really a bulk upload. So if you have a large number of new employees coming on board, that's what you would really be using it for. If you only have like 5, I recommend just manually entering in those employees. Because like I said during the presentation, you run the risk of entering in someone twice if that person is already in SEBB My Account, maybe at another district or something of that nature, and you're uploading them via the eligibility file. So
you notice Sarah went to the training schedule and there wasn't the pre-annual open enrollment to register for. Well, that's not available yet, but it will be once we get that posted. I don't have an exact date when that webinar will be posted to be able to register. So just keep an eye on that webpage there as it gets closer to the October 1st webinar date.
I'm sure a Gov delivery will be going out. So again, register for that Gov delivery because I'm sure we'll be sending one out letting you know that registration is now open and to get registered for it.
And again, we won't be sending that. We won't be sending this presentation out. You can find it on the BA website.
Yes. And with that being said, we are actually, it's 11:01. So I know I took a look at the Q&A and it looks like we have a lot of questions. So we will be working through those questions next week and we will respond to you to get your questions answered. So Even though we didn't get them answered today, we will be responding directly to you to get them answered for you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for taking the time out of your beautiful Friday, happy Friday, to come join us for this webinar. And we will see you again on the next webinar. Have a
Yes,
great
thank you.
weekend.
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And I hope you got a lot out of this webinar. And yes, have a great weekend.